Hey guys, it's me, Mr. De La Torre. So I'm not going to be able to see you guys today, but that's okay. Because today you're going to be doing this lesson on your own. Now, this is going over invasive species. We already started touching on that during our lesson with the succession, but now we're just going to focus on that specifically because that's what your exit ticket's going to be about. So pay attention to what we're going to be talking about, take down some notes. When we go into the next section, you're going to work on questions, and then you're going to see a video of me explaining the answers to the questions. This all should take around 30 or so minutes in total. That includes the time you have to work on the questions. And then you'll have the exit ticket linked at the end. So you'll have access to it then. All right, so let's get started. So invasive species. The objective, students will be able to understand what an invasive species are and how they can affect the ecosystem. Now, invasive species, organisms that do not belong in the ecosystem. They disrupt the food web and can cause the downfall of certain organisms. They have an advantage in that they can either have no predators, they compete aggressively, they reproduce quickly, and or have more tolerance in the environment. So these are all things that they have that gives them an advantage. And because they have that advantage, they are better suited to dominate in that environment. But they don't belong there. If they had belonged there naturally, this wouldn't be an issue. This would just be another form of natural selection. But they do not belong there, and so they disrupt the entire ecosystem and sometimes throw things really out of whack. Let's go to the next slide. So invasive species. Invasive species can be worse than natural disasters because they are long-term problems while natural disasters are temporary. So once you have an invasive species, it's actually really, really hard to get rid of it. And it can cause problems for years to come. While a natural disaster, like let's say a great fire, a flood, a hurricane, something like that, it comes and it goes, but it comes and goes. And then the ecosystem can start recovering. Invasive species get stuck there. Sometimes they completely remove an entire part of the food web. They could remove an entire organism, which completely changes how the ecosystem is going to function. This means that invasive species are one of the worst things that can happen to an ecosystem. Their effect is amplified depending on which trophic level they target. So let's actually go to the next slide. All right, so we have this right here, this food web. Now, if they target anything from the producer level, that's a really bad thing. That is a really, really bad thing. And as you go up, it doesn't get as bad, but it still can affect the ecosystem. So, for example, if they were to target an eagle, yeah, the eagle eats the snakes, it eats the wolf, it eats the rat, and it eats the thrush. That's bad because now these populations are going to grow and it's going to throw everything out of whack. But eventually, another organism can come in and take that job and start eating the other ones. So it's a lot easier to replace a tertiary consumer. Then as you start going down, you go down, and you go down, we're eventually going to reach a point where we get to the producer level. And the thing is, it's very hard to replace a producer. It's not as hard to replace the eagle as it is to replace the mangoes, for example, or the lavender, for example. Because check it out. If we were to be looking at the eagle and the eagle died, okay, well, other organisms still eat. So the eagle eats the wolf, but so does the python. So maybe the python can take over that job and start eating more of the wolf. And the eagle also ate the rat, but so does the python. The python could start taking over and eating the rats too. So there's a form of keeping that ecosystem somewhat in balance. It's going to be hard, but you can still keep the ecosystem in balance. But when you get rid of something like the mango, there's nothing to replace it. The fruit fly only eats the mango, meaning the fruit fly is going to disappear. And then the dragonfly eats the fruit fly, so it's going to lose food, and the thrush is also going to lose half most of its food. So then the thrush population is going to go down, and then the wolf and the eagle are going to start going down, and it just throws everything out of whack. So you don't want to mess with this producer level. The lower on the trophic level that you attack, the worse the situation gets. And it doesn't have to be like, oh, this new invasive species completely ate all the mangoes or completely ate all the lavender. No, sometimes it's another plant that comes in and completely takes over. It's a plant that takes the place where the mangoes were, where the lavender were, where the flowering plant were. It will take their spot. And it's a plant that the other organisms are not able to eat. And that's bad because even though we have another plant there, it cannot eat or be eaten by the other organisms. And that's going to throw everything off whack. So you don't want that. Now, lastly, here we go. We have humans. Humans are considered by some to be an invasive species. Humans are able to disrupt the cycle of succession by constructing over the ecosystem. We are the only organism that's able to do that. And it says right here, this is something unique to humans and makes us the worst kind of potential invasive species. Because we're able to do construction, we stop succession from happening altogether. So we do that all the time whenever we build buildings, whenever we build parks, whenever we get farms, everything that we do where we have to remove the plants and everything that was there. By removing them, we remove all the animals that could live there, and we completely throw everything out of whack. And that's not a good thing. But there is some good news. And let me show you what it is right now. So this is the good news that we have. Invasive species, just like every other organism, follow a growth pattern. So in the beginning, because they don't have any predators, they don't have that much competition, they're going to be growing exponentially like we see in the left. And to be fair, all organisms grow exponentially in the beginning. All of them. No matter if they're invasive or not, they're all going to grow exponentially. The only reason that the invasive are growing exponentially is because of the fact that they're new. They don't have anything yet. But eventually, these invasive species, they're going to end up becoming a part of the ecosystem. But it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while. And when they do become a part of the ecosystem, they're finally going to fill in a niche. They're going to have a certain kind of a job in there, in the ecosystem. So once they get to that, they're actually going to go from exponential growth to logistic growth. So they're going to be looking like this graph right here on the right. They're going to have a carrying capacity because all of a sudden, if enough time happens, they might get a predator, or they might reach a limit on the resources. In the beginning, it's unlimited, but near the end, you start getting a limit to your resources. So they're going to be hitting that carrying capacity, either due to the resources finally becoming limited or a predator finally approaching, or other organisms could adapt and start competing with them at the same level. And so eventually you're going to hit logistic growth with your invasive species, just like any other species of organisms. So yes, invasive species are horrible in the beginning. They're experiencing exponential growth, but eventually they will hit logistic growth just like every other species. And that's one way of looking at it in a positive light, that eventually this will stop. But anyway, guys, that is it for the notes for today. This is super condensed down and super simplified because I'm only giving you what you need. Go to the next page, do the problems that are on there, and then you'll see a video of me explaining the problems. Work on them honestly, work on them truthfully, because your exit ticket will come up. And if we can get these right, you'll do great. And that'll be another good grade to boost your grade up. Anyway, guys, I'll see you later. Bye.